Hey, if you're like me, you saw the new Mutants trailer and you got really excited, but this is not any ordinary trailer. Not only is this movie definitely going to be released, it is going to change the Marvel Cinematic Universe forever. Welcome, film fans. My name is Greg, and on this channel we celebrate all geeky and nerdy fandom, including a movie that may never be released. Well, first, let's get that out of the way. This movie is totally going to be released, and that's why I'm so optimistic about it, because there are so many different ways for Disney to actually release this movie. As we've seen, Disney is not afraid to release their big blockbuster movies on their streaming platforms. So, for example, Artemis Fowl on Disney Plus was released there. Now, I know a lot of people didn't particularly like that movie, but that's not the point. The point was that Disney decided to release it on their streaming service. They're also not afraid to release movies on Hulu, which, by the way, Disney owns 60% of shares of Hulu, which basically means they own all control over it. This means that Disney does not have to rely solely on theaters in order to release their movies. They could actually be releasing them on their streaming services. And with all these different options, to me, it just makes sense that New Mutants would eventually end up in our homes or in a big movie theater one way or another. But let's talk about the impact this movie will have behind the scenes of the MCU and not just, the entertainment industry in general. This is a horror movie. This is a superhero horror movie. And if this movie is successful, it will expand the possibilities of what could be a comic book or superhero movie, much in the same vein as Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which took the spy thriller concept and just combined it with superheroes. The New Mutants, if successful, can do something very similar to that. But now let's get into the real meat and potatoes of this whole thing, right? The thing that I'm really excited about, which is how this movie can connect to the MCU from a story perspective. I want to point out one of the moments near the very end of the film where Anya Taylor-Joy's character, Magic, talks about how she is
It's magic! So am I.
In order to connect the dots of why this matters, we need to talk about Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange. Scarlet Witch is going to be in a TV show released on Disney Plus called WandaVision. Now, in this TV show, and if you've seen any of the different, teasers and things about it, it shows us that Wanda is kind of going insane. And what's cool about Scarlet Witch and what I like about her is that her powers are just so different, as, is put in Avengers Age of Ultron. Her powers are weird. So what does this mean? It means that as she's slowly starting to go insane, we see reality kind of bending around her. So that's one particular dot. Now, the other dot I want to talk about is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Now, this is a movie that is going to cross over between WandaVision and Doctor Strange. In fact, WandaVision is going to lead into Doctor Strange 2. Now, supposedly in this movie, there is going to be a huge end-of-the-world type of reality-bending plot. And because of all the different realities that might happen, that not only opens up the MCU to bringing in new characters, but also to radically change their world as we know it. What does this have to do with New Mutants? At the very end of the trailer, Anya Taylor-Joy's character, also known as Magic in the comics, says that she is magical. And her abilities is actually interdimensional teleportation, magic manipulation, all sorts of psychic energies, right? So she could also technically go to different dimensions in their world. What this opens up is a possibility of the New Mutants crossing over with Doctor Strange and Wanda, because if you have a multiverse that is being explored on one side and you have interdimensional capabilities being explored on another side, you could seamlessly combine those characters in certain particular scenes. Now, because of Scarlet Witch's reality bending abilities, she could also say something really famous, which is mutants. Basically, this would be a play on the House of M storyline, where Scarlet Witch said no more mutants and totally, wiped out most of the mutant population. In this version, she could actually say something like all mutants or more mutants or just mutants. And all of a sudden, we would see mutants being transferred into the main reality of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that could be after an encounter with the New Mutants that Doctor Strange and Wanda have, or maybe it's just with Magic or somebody else, but it could be something that you put at an end credit scene or even what seems like a throwaway scene in the movie. Either way, these movies actually can add to the overall story of the MCU and could be very important in the future, which is why I think Marvel is definitely going to release this. Whether they heavily promote it as a big Marvel movie is another thing, but it at least keeps that door open for characters like the New Mutants we brought into the MCU. Now, you don't have to know all of this or even to bend reality in order to appreciate what Marvel is trying to do. And if you appreciate what I do, be sure to subscribe to this channel and always feel good about your fandom and geekdom by coming here.